I'll give you a little spoiler. The mistake I made relates to me not figuring out autism until pretty late. Hello and welcome to Alien Perspective. For more videos on the autistic experience, please subscribe. Okay, today we are talking about my autism diagnosis story. And every time I'm in the process of writing out the script for a new video, I'm like, okay, why am I making this video? And in this case, it's because on the path to a greater understanding about autism, I made a big mistake. And having perused r/autism, I know I'm not the only one that's made this mistake, and I don't want anyone else to have the consequences of my mistake. So, I'm going to start out with the story of my autism understanding from my perspective. I'm not going to go through how other people saw signs. It's all about my self-perception right here. So, I always knew that I was different. I remember being like 4 or 5 years old. You could just tell, right? Where I had different interests and they were much more intense. I remember being like 7 years old and having more knowledge about the history and the strategy of baseball than a lot of my high school teammates. I think the most obvious was organization, where I have stories that people tell me from when I was like 2.5 years old, where those little wooden Thomas trains, remember those? I had all these little wooden Thomas trains and they had a specific order, and that order must not be disturbed. I remember I had a 5 freight car consist, and all 5 cars had to go in the specific order, or else I was just not having it. My mom, just out of curiosity, she told me a story where she did a test to see how I'd react to if a couple of them were switched. And sure enough, as soon as I woke up, I went over and I looked at them, and I had like the crinkle in between the eyebrows, and I looked at them. I'm like, this isn't right. And I switched them back to be the right way. Other autistic qualities I recognized early on. I didn't relate to as many people as all the normal brain kids did, but when I did connect with someone, it was much deeper and more intense. And I communicated differently for all of the reasons that I described in the 9, what was it? 9, it was the Buckets of Autism video with the circle, with the rainbow. It'll be popping up when I edit it later. And I could obviously recognize that I fulfilled the stereotype of being very good at math, though I didn't know I filled the stereotype at the time. Ultimately, the organization was the one that was most obvious to me. And I ultimately attributed, my weirdness to my different environment. I could tell early on that most other people did not have a narcissistic father waging a custody battle on them like I did. And so having my nurture over nature mindset, bias, I just went to the environmental factors. So let's jump to like mid-high school. I didn't have an autism diagnosis anytime in childhood. You'll see, I'll give you a little spoiler. The mistake I made relates to me not figuring out autism until pretty late. I think it was somewhere around like mid to late high school where I started to think, I think I might be a little on the spectrum. Now, I didn't fit the stereotype of someone who's nonverbal, who's non-social, who's distant from their emotions. The image in my head is the kid that's rocking in the corner and has behavioral problems, which at the time would have been described as temper tantrums. And that stereotype kept me from being more self-aware, and it stunted my personal growth, because I didn't identify with the autism stereotype, so I just underrated my potential for being autistic in my own mind. And it shows you, and what I'm about to say through my mistake will show you just how damaging stereotypes can be. The other factor was I was really good at school, and I always had a group of friends, and that didn't fit the autism stereotype. And so ultimately, my mom and I, it was just us two growing up, and we just really didn't have much motivation to look into it more. God, we were so caught up on just trying to make it money-wise and just trying to fend off my father that we didn't look into the autism enough. And plus, this was around like 2010. This is when I was in high school, around 2010. And autism knowledge was only just starting to kick into gear at that point. Okay. And around mid to late high school, I made a friend who was on the spectrum, and being me, like I got to overanalyze everything and be like, okay, he has these qualities that I don't have, right? So he went through burnout, and that was something that until very recently I was like, oh, I don't go through burnout. The eye contact thing, that didn't really affect me much, and he's introverted, I'm extroverted. I'm like, all right, hey, listen, I'm lucky. I only have autism light. Which, if anyone has seen the first live stream that I ever did where I took the autism quotient test, you know that I certainly do not have autism light. Let me check out chat. I'm sorry, chat. I've been really absorbed into what I'm saying. Let me try to respond. Tim Travis, having a group of friends delayed autism diagnosis too? Because autism equals no friends, duh. Jared, I always had weird friends, so I just thought I was weird too. Yeah, dude, I was in the same situation. I was like the leader of the weirdos. Proudly so, goddammit. We were way cooler than all the basic-ass wannabe popular kids. Good at school plus female equals she can't be autistic. Yeah, oh god. Well, Buttercup Draws, if you're anywhere around my age, it would have been even worse, right? Because autism knowledge is like exponentially grown. The good amount of autism knowledge, right? Not garbage-ass bad science autism knowledge has grown so much in the last decade and a half. Okay. Ultimately, I made the mistake of minimizing my own struggles. I made the mistake of focusing only on what was easier for me. I made the mistake of fixating only on the trauma that my father caused. And I made the mistake of not seeking help, of not seeking a professional to educate me on autism. And I made the mistake of thinking that because other people are struggling, that I should reserve those finite resources of help for them. In high school, they basically told my mother, hey, listen, our schools, we don't have a ton of money, and we got to focus on the kids who are just barely on the edge, barely making it through high school. Your son, he's going to go off to good school. He has good grades, so we're just going to not focus on him. It's like a very capitalist mindset of like, he is productive, therefore he's fine. And then in college, I could have had therapy, and I didn't take it up. And that was a mistake. God, I could have, for most of my adult life, I have not had health insurance, and to think I could have used it when I had the chance, it's very frustrating because I have a very pro-growth mindset. I have no evidence to believe that there's an afterlife, so if all we have is this, I gotta maximize the life that I have, and to think that I made mistakes that inhibited that is very frustrating. Because I can't help but think, how much growth did I miss out on? How much more self-aware would I have been? How much better would I have been at socializing? How much less obnoxious and preachy would I have been? How much more successful would I have been with hanging on to friendships and relationships that meant a lot to me? Because I think I would have been a lot less pushy. I think I would have had a lot more realistic expectations of people. And I can't help but think that the heartbreak that I went through for years, that I could have gotten over it better if I had known about the autism hyperfixation and the emotional intensity. Maybe the biggest one is I can't help but think it would have helped others understand me if I had known more about my autism, if I had had the language with which to describe it. Because I feel like there's a lot of people, when they hear that label, it's like a light bulb goes off in their head, and they have a, oh, I get it kind of moment. And I think that if more people understood that I'm autistic, it would have opened up at least some of them, maybe even a majority of them, to accepting me being different instead of that kind of. And the people who would have been like about the autism label, like they would have disliked me regardless because they hate, nonconformity because they're boring, basic, and stupid. I want to make it really clear because I put the word mistake in the title. The mistake we made was to not explore what autism is and how it affects me sooner. Because I was so good at school, they're like, hold off, we'll save it for the kids that really need it. Because I faced narcissistic abuse, we focus much more on the nurture over the nature being autism. And the stereotype of the nonverbal, non-social kid rocking in the corner kept me underrating my autism. And those are all really understandable reasons. I see someone right now, they're just now seeking a diagnosis. Did you have the same kind of experience? You had the same stereotype in your brain that you just didn't quite fit. I've seen other autistic people wallow in suspecting that they're autistic, but putting off figuring it out. It's the exact mistake I made. I remember being at university and it's like, okay, I was in be good at college mode. I was at be good at class, get good grades, get into good grad school maybe. And being in university mode, I was not as much in personal growth mode. Tunnel vision, man. I couldn't break out of that tunnel vision. Okay, so let's actually get back to figuring it out. About a month into the pandemic, God, that first month, I'm sorry, I'm just hitting on how awful that first month and a half was. I made a video a year ago when I was in the middle of burnout, and it was like, oh my God, this is my first burnout ever. I look back now with clearer eyes on the past and can see that month and a half after we went into COVID lockdown, that I was also in depressed burnout mode. I went from going into San Francisco 5 days a week, working 40 hours, plus taking care of my mom, who's got a disability, plus every weekend doing 1, if not 2, if not 5 Bernie Sanders activism, door knocking things. And I went from that to laid off, stay in the house all day. And for an extrovert, anyway, what got me out of it is that in April of 2020, YouTube suggested to me a video from Asperger's from the Inside. And it changed my life. I highly doubt that I would be making videos that I would have had the growth necessary to start the channel if I hadn't discovered the Asperger's from the Inside channel. Which by the way, like and subscribe, please, if you're watching now, please like the stream. Oh, and a little plug right now. I'm going to start streaming on Twitch, so go to @TheAlienPerspective and follow me on Twitch. I'm hoping to do one every week or 2 weeks. I like that there's a calendar on Twitch so you can see when I'm actually streaming. Anyway, watching those Asperger's from the Inside views was amazing because I'm hearing someone describe so accurately and in such detail what the experience of life with a weird autism brain. And I've been watching YouTube like 12 years, 14 years at that point, and I had never connected on a personal level with the video quite like I did watching those Asperger's from the Inside videos. And I gotta say, when I get comments that reflect how I felt towards Asperger's from the Inside, and it's people doing that towards me, oh my God, that's just like the best feeling ever. Absolutely best feeling ever. Dead Theodore Logan. First off, read that as Theoden, and I was like, awesome, Lord of the Rings reference, but no, dyslexia strikes. Being out of the closet has honestly improved my life in ways I never would have imagined. People are so much more understanding than I thought they'd be. And you know what? I bet if you're anything like me, you've become more understanding of other people as well. Okay, I know I call this my diagnosis story, but I actually haven't been formally diagnosed. I personally don't see any benefit, especially for how much time and money a diagnosis would cost. And plus, what am I going to do? Get accommodations? Is the government going to say, oh, well, he's disabled? Like, no, they're going to look at my education and go, yeah, you're fine. Application into the garbage can. So then I would just be seeking on a personal level, because my therapist, she acknowledges I'm autistic. So it really would just be for the personal validation, which I don't feel that I need. I don't have imposter syndrome, fortunately, and I, fortunately, have a good support system between my close group of friends and my mother. So I don't feel that I need the diagnosis, at least not formally. I think a self-diagnosis is valid, and having talked with other autistic people, having watched Asperger's from the Inside, who also only has a self-diagnosis, and reading r/autism, it seems to be the majority opinion that self-diagnosis is totally fine. You're part of the group. Tim, before I was told I had numerous autism symptoms, I had conflated autism with the low-functioning stereotype, so I never suspected I had it. Shows how damaging those stereotypes are. Yeah. Who wants to spend $3,000 on a diagnosis? It's crazy how much healthcare is in this country. But let's not go on the Medicare for All tangent. Okay, so the phase I'm in right now, because it's been about 2 years since I had the end of the 2001 A Space Odyssey understanding moment, and the phase I'm in right now is like the tail end of that reevaluating my entire life phase. This seems to be a common thing where when people figure out that they're on the spectrum, they have like this complete reevaluation of how, I've looked back on how I've interacted with others, on how others have treated or mistreated me, how I've been misunderstood, how I experience and feel the world differently, like literally feel the world differently. I'm not just talking emotional intensity, I'm talking like my sense of touch is different and I feel differently. And I've recontextualized, problems I've had in relationships and friendships, and why I speak, communicate, and care so differently. Do you feel what I'm saying on the caring? Do you feel like you care differently? I feel like I care differently. I just wish I'd known sooner. I wish I'd known more about autism sooner. However, we can't be dwelling on the past. We can't spend too much time cringing at our past behavior. And the flip side is that there is absolutely nothing stopping us from growing right now. Because ultimately, the way I see it is my mom and I, we did the best we could based off the information we had at that time. Oh, excuse me. Oh God, that's right into the lav mic, isn't it? Cutting that out later. It's understandable that we would focus on the narcissistic father-induced trauma, and it's understandable given the lack of good information about autism. And part of the autism journey is like accepting we did the best we could. Because it's ultimately not fair to blame yourself for not knowing what you don't know. It's like if a deep sea fish was pissed at itself for not knowing there are stars in the sky. Is that a terrible analogy? Is that a terrible analogy? Do you get it? Because like the fish at the bottom of the ocean, they haven't seen the sky. Okay. I don't know. Maybe I had to go through everything that I went through to wind up where I am right now, speaking to you in front of camera. So my message is that if you think you're on the spectrum, do not wait. Figure it out. We don't ultimately spend all that much time on this planet, so act with a sense of urgency. And if you're anything like me, you'll have just a deluge of new knowledge flood your brain, right? You'll spend some time outraged at how you've been treated and misunderstood. And that's understandable. You'll recognize struggles you've always had and just coped with. And you'll discover shit that's been hard your whole life that you never noticed. Like, I never noticed just how much my sense of touch is altered. I had never recognized that I go through burnout too. And if your experience is like mine, life is a little harder. Like, there's a bump you gotta get over. You know, you'll be more aware of all the difficulties, and at times, you probably feel pretty overwhelmed. So give yourself permission to struggle. I know I suck at that, so that is a message to my future self as much as it is to anyone that watches this. I know that one thing I struggled with was coming to terms that certain things are hard, but they've always been hard, even if though I wasn't aware of them. Right? I can't tell you how often over the last couple of years I've had that thought of, I didn't struggle with this before. And now that I know more about autism, am I just manifesting these struggles? It's hard not to think sometimes that ignorance is bliss. It's hard not to think, now that I know I'm autistic, are my autism symptoms getting worse? Now that I know more about autism, am I like manifesting new symptoms? Am I like psychosomatically creating new problems in my life? Is psychosomatically a word? It's a word now. However, I don't want you to hear that and be scared off, right? Because if you're anything like me, you'll get over that hump of difficulty, and after some time, you will make the adjustments, and life will actually become easier. It will become more fulfilling, and it will become a happier life. Straight up, for like every struggle you become aware of, the new autism knowledge will make several other struggles easier to cope with. And you'll be more understood. You'll have language to describe to others why you are the way that you are, why you have the needs that you have. But also, you'll grow more accepting of other people. And your relationships will get better. So just give yourself permission to take some time. This is another message for me, because I know I suck at giving myself permission to take some time. Because I feel like if I am aware of a change I need to make, like I need to make it immediately. Oh, God. So try not to live in regret that you didn't know sooner, because I know I can't help but imagine what my life would have been like. It's hard not to go through the rabbit hole of alternate memories. I just try to cut them off before I go down into the black hole. Because all we can do is the best we can do right now. So go figure it out. Oh man, okay. Let me look at chat before I close it out. Buttercup Charles, I'm amazed it took this long for humanity to work out the autism thing. You probably said that like 10 minutes ago. I'm so sorry, I'm just getting to it now. Oh God, aren't you disappointed with how long it takes for humanity? I mean, God, we still have countries and race. God, so primitive. Isn't it frustrating how primitive we are as a species? I'm just gonna call you dead Theoden Logan. I'm going for it. Being an undiagnosed autistic feels like being gaslit all the time by everyone your whole life. It will mess with your head so bad. Oh God, yeah. Yeah, because like everyone seems to misunderstand you. It's like you try to explain yourself. This is such a common one. You try to explain yourself and like, don't be defensive. And it's like, no, I'm just trying to explain because I know I'm weird and I have to explain shit. Yeah, and then you gaslight yourself. Dude, think about earlier in this where I talked about, other people have greater struggles than me. Let them take the finite resources. Yeah. I just want to reiterate. Main takeaway. If you think you might be autistic, if you think you show some autistic qualities, try to figure it out. You don't have to do it by spending hundreds of dollars on a professional. You can go right now. You can go take the autism quotient test. I took it earlier. You can watch that video if you want, because I got a plug to make YouTube happy. But try to figure it out. One of the best resources we have is this very website where we can watch other autistic creators describe it. I like Asperger's from the inside. There's other people I've connected with, Paige Lael, Chloe Hayden, Purple Ella. There's tons of really good autism channels. If you think you're on the spectrum, please do not waste time. Go figure it out. This is Alien Perspective. Please like, subscribe, and comment below. And watch out for my new Twitch streams. It's going to be at The Alien Perspective. Thanks for watching.